Are you a mountain biker? Do you love ripping epic downhills all day, but without those stupid climbs? Me too! With this Crestline e-mountain bike, I can ride all those glorious downhills all day, but without those pesky climbs. Call Worldwide Cyclery today to book your demo and ride this glorious bike. That's 805-375-4525. That's right, 805-375-4525. Call today. You may or may not have heard of Crestline bikes at this point, but they've been around for a couple years and they've been making some groundbreaking mountain bikes. Their co-founder, Troyden, is actually a good friend of ours. He was a diehard downhiller and he wanted to create a true downhiller's e-bike. We've actually had him on the eMTB podcast a couple of times, so check that out if you're interested in learning more about Crestline and history and all that good stuff. Their flagship mountain bike, the RS205 VHP, was a limited edition downhill bike that was quickly followed by their RS7550 e-mountain bike, which also quickly became the real core mountain biker's e-bike to have. So with the latest bikes in the S180 behind me and the LS160, you might be wondering what's new about these bikes, why are they the best ones yet, and why should I want one? Tune in to find out. Let's talk bike and frame details on the Crestline S180 and LS160. The S180 has a 63.5 degree head tube angle, and that's paired with a 77 degree seat tube angle. The RH4 sized bike gets a 77.5 degree seat tube angle. The reach is 450 millimeters on the RH2, 475 millimeters on the RH3, and 500 millimeters on the RH4 sized bike. Those reach numbers are adjustable by plus or minus 5 millimeters with the included reach adjust headset. The dual link suspension design offers 180 millimeters of rear travel paired with a 180 millimeter fork. That travel is adjustable via the shock stroke or the flip chip in the suspension link by about 30 millimeters. This bike comes with either 29 or mullet wheel size. Certain sizes come with specific setups from the factory, but they can be changed aftermarket. Hit the link in the blog in the description for all of that information and the nitty-gritty details. For the LS160, this bike utilizes a 64 degree head tube angle paired with a 78 degree seat tube angle, plus a 78.5 degree seat tube angle on the RH4 sized bike. As with the S180, this bike also utilizes a 450 millimeter reach on the RH2, 475 millimeter reach on the RH3, 500 millimeter reach on the RH4, and all of these reach numbers are adjustable by plus or 5 millimeters with the reach adjust headset. This bike also utilizes the same dual link suspension design, but with 160 millimeters of rear travel paired with a 160 millimeter fork. As I mentioned before, those travel numbers are adjustable via the shock stroke or the flip chip in the rear link. This bike is also 29 or mullet compatible, and it also comes in specific configurations from the factory, but you can change them via aftermarket. Again, hit the link in the description for the blog and all those details. The 600 watt-hour build comes in at just over 47 pounds. Both of these bikes utilize the new Gen 5 Bosch CX motor with either a 600 watt-hour or a 100 watt-hour battery, with an option to add a 250 watt-hour range extender. This motor has 600 watts of max continuous power and 85 newton meters of max continuous torque. So, with all that said, this bike probably won't make you that sweaty when you're riding it, but in case you do ride bikes that will make you sweaty, Jeff has a little something special for you.
If you happen to be riding a normal bike and one that doesn't have a beautifully fast electric motor, you might be getting sweaty. And one way to stay healthy and energetic and comfortable on the bike is to replenish your electrolytes. It's basically a necessity. You should know this if you're a mountain biker. The drink mix that we all use around here and absolutely love is LMNT. These guys have been a channel sponsor for a little while now, and we are stoked on that because it's a really, really good high quality product. Every one of these little sachets has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, potassium, and magnesium, and 10 calories or less because they sweeten it with just a touch of stevia. So it's got this beautifully sweet, salty mixture in terms of the flavor. Really good stuff. Fantastic drink mix for riding mountain bikes. You should certainly check these guys out. We really like them and appreciate their support, and you can support our channel and get a little offer from them, a free variety pack with any purchase if you go to this link that you see on the screen right now, which is drinklmnt.com/worldwide cyclery. Again, that is drinklmnt.com/worldwide cyclery. Also in the video description, try these things out. I guarantee you will love them. They are very good. Thanks.
So let's talk build kits. One thing that I truly appreciate about this bike, and the Crestlines in particular, is how they just come absolutely dialed and ready to shred right out of the box. Even the most discerning rider with the most picky tastes can probably just go straight to the trails with this bike and not have to replace anything, from the grips, shout out Trail One Crestline collab, to the saddle, tires, whatever. More specifically, when it comes to the S180, this bike was built with more of a downhill emphasis in mind. So you'll find more alloy parts like the Alloy DT Swiss wheels, Alloy 1-up handlebar, SRAM GX transmission, RockShox Vivid Air rear shock, all that good stuff. These are parts that are specifically curated for the S180. For the LS160, you'll find a few more carbon parts like carbon DT Swiss wheels, carbon 1-up handlebar. You'll have a RockShox Super Deluxe rear shock instead of the Vivid Air, and a SRAM EXO transmission. So a few component changes there. It actually sheds a few pounds off the bike, and it gives you a little more idea of the intentions for that bike. So with that said, this thing is immediately ready to take to the gnarliest downhill trail wherever you've got it and just ride it all day long. So like I said, I truly appreciate about this bike. There was a lot of thought that went into the build kit and what are people are going to be using this bike for. And not only that, but the parts themselves are absolutely dialed. So with that said, you're probably wondering how this bike rides. So let's get into that. I have been spending my time upon the S180 with its 63.5-degree head tube angle and 180 millimeters of front and rear travel. This bike rides very much so like a downhill bike with a motor, or an aggressive enduro race bike with a motor. It really craves steep, chunky, fast, all these sorts of types of trails that you would obviously take an enduro race bike or a downhill bike on. So yeah, it really does feel like, you know, a downhill bike with a motor. You can actually swap out the single crown fork for a dual crown fork. And that is something that we've seen a lot of our customers do as well, because, I mean, let's be real. I mean, why wouldn't you do something like that? The Bosch motor, this is a very interesting refined package in here. It also comes complete with a newer high energy density battery. So you can actually get a slightly larger battery that weighs even a little bit less than they used to. So that's a really nice thing that Crestline has done here as well. This motor, probably my favorite thing about it, while it's not as powerful as, you know, like the DJI that we just tested out or some of the other motors out there, it is by far and away the quietest motor that I have ever experienced when you're going down the trail. You can hear it a little bit when you're climbing and stuff, like, you know, like most other e-bike motors out there, but, and that's a big but, a lot of e-bikes, you know, they make that kind of rattling sound from the clutch or whatever it is disengaging in the motor and rattling around when you're going down a little rocky trail or something like that. So very, very pleased to report that this thing was dead quiet. And yeah, the only sound that you could really hear was tires in the dirt. So that was very refreshing. I had heard things about this, but you hear things about these e-bike motors and you're always thinking, well, is it really like that? Yeah, this one was actually that quiet and it was really impressive. Aside from that, like I said, this thing really just craves speed, you know, rocky terrain, steep trails, all that good stuff. And it was very confidence inspiring. So I really, really enjoyed that. The suspension platform is also extremely impressive. It has a very supple nature to it while it is still supportive. So supple yet supportive. I know that's kind of like a cliche thing to say, but maybe true. This bike, yeah, it really just thrives in those sorts of environments. What can I say? I mean, if you live in an area that you love to ride a bunch of gnarly stuff, super steep, you know, Squamish, whatever, this is pretty much the bike to be riding. The LS160, on the other hand, it has a slightly steeper head tube angle. Unfortunately, I did not have the pleasure of riding that bike. It's got a little bit less travel, and like I mentioned earlier, lighter build kit. So that's going to be geared more towards your aggressive all mountain or, you know, enduro, but not quite as burly as the S180. So that pretty much wraps up our ride impressions. We've talked about how great this bike is and why it would be amazing to have one, but let's talk about the potential cons. A minor potential con, I would have loved to see some downhill casing tires on here with the super soft rubber. This bike, you know, with the long travel and the super slack geo, intentions are very clear. It's aggressive, downhill oriented bike, and it would have been nice to have that aggressive downhill oriented rubber to pair with it. You know, these tires are not horrible. These are the enduro casing tires with the soft rubber. So like I said, not horrible, but I would have loved to see the super soft rubber in there. Another potential con is that there are kind of limited build kit options. You're kind of, you know, what you see is what you get. There's this build kit and there is the other build kit for the LS160. Alternatively, you could go the frame only route, which is a nice option. You don't see a lot of e-bikes have that frame only option. So if you are very particular about your components and you wanted something else, you can get the frame only and put whatever you want on there. Or perhaps you have your own slew of parts that you'd like to assemble the bike with. Lastly, you know, like I mentioned, this is a very aggressive e-bike, you know, geometry-wise and component-wise, it is geared toward aggressive downhills. And if you don't really live near that type of terrain, you know, it might not be the bike for you. As cool as it is, as badly as you might want to ride it, you know, it could be just a little bit too much if you don't have super steep or aggressive terrain near you. So keep that in mind when you're looking at bikes. You know, like the DJI we reviewed last time, much more geared towards a trail experience than this. So keep that in mind. You could also go the LS160 route. That bike is obviously a few pounds lighter, more geared towards that kind of thing. So this whole e-bike world is kind of crazy. You know, I'm just hanging out here. You guys live here.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
But do with that information as you will. So that pretty much wraps up the potential cons. In conclusion, what do we have here? We have got an aggressive, downhill-oriented e-bike that has the latest Bosch motor, which is very nice, and really, really dialed in kinematics brought to you by Cascade Components and Crestline. The ability to change travel is really nice. You can take this down to 170, 160, 150, whatever, and you can put a downhill fork on it. So you could really configure this bike in a variety of ways to suit your preferences and your geographical location. Aside from that, this is basically the best downhill-oriented e-bike that I personally have ever ridden. It's, like I said, just very refined and purpose-built to do exactly what it is. And if you know the guy, Troyden, who made this bike, it makes sense that he just wanted to have as much fun going downhill as possible. And the motor is just the way to get you to the top. So this thing truly lives up to that, and it is super fun to ride. So if you really, truly value just getting to the top of your downhills, the gnarliest ones around, and shredding down them all day, this is probably the bike for you. Pretty much that wraps this one up. If you guys enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching. Share it with a friend who loves e-bikes, who also might think this bike is pretty cool. Even if you don't like e-bikes, I mean, you gotta admit, this thing is pretty sweet. And I'm not even like, I don't even have my own e-bike. I just ride these ones and it's pretty amazing. So like I said, thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it. Like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Ciao.